if you ever try a tutorial at a conference like this, is Megan McCorquodale. She says she's in the top 2 McCs from Halifax, so likely we have some competition. She's also a mathematician who makes pictures to try to understand hockey. Yeah, I'm like this. As a mathematician, often from Nova Scotia, she moved to Vancouver in fall of 2001, right after riots, and works as a data scientist for a software company. So welcome, Megan.
Slightly shorter than Josh, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, 2 seconds. Let me just make sure we get the slides up. You can see them. So, we're going to learn some SQL. So before we start, has everyone downloaded Postgres? Because that's going to take the longest, so if you're going to do that, do it now. Just to show of hands, how many people have actually coded in SQL before? Cool, you're probably going to be really bored. We're just going to go through some basics. This is pretty much geared toward pure beginners, so if you have any questions as I go, please feel free to stop me. And actually, my friend Adam is sitting quietly in the back there. He's very good at SQL, so if you have problems, you can go bug him too. And hopefully, we can get you started so you can actually get coding and doing some fun stuff. All right, so here's what we're going to do for today. First, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why you would maybe want to learn this. We're going to go through this actual setup process to set up Postgres SQL on your machine. Hopefully, this will work. We're probably going to have some problems, but we'll see how it goes. And then we're going to go into some basics of Postgres. We're going to create some tables. We're going to do some basic SQL commands. We're going to do some hands-on examples, and then I've got a list of resources at the end for when you want to keep going on this. All right, so like I said, this is for beginners. So again, if you've done a lot of coding before, you're probably going to be a little bit bored, but this is hopefully going to be a resource to get more people involved to be able to do a little bit of coding. All right, we're going to be hands-on, and so I'm going to thank you in advance for your patience because I'm going to try and live code, and that doesn't always work very well. We're going to see how this goes. There's actually a file on the website as well that has all of the SQL code that we're going to run today already written there, so you can just copy and paste and then see the output. This is so you don't have to be typing heads down the entire time. You can actually look at the output and see what happens. So hopefully this will go okay. All right, so first, why are we doing SQL? It's actually one of the more intuitive coding languages to learn, at least I found when I was first starting out. When you read it, it pretty much reads just like English, so you can actually look at it and kind of figure out what's happening. It integrates pretty well with common analysis workflows, like a lot of people will do a lot of things in Excel, and or start putting that stuff into R and Python and all of those fun things. When I first started, I did my master's at SFU. One of my profs said, friends don't let friends use Excel, and I kind of disagree. I think friends help friends use Excel better, and hopefully this talk will help you be able to use Excel better. You're going to be able to do a lot of the data wrangling and things like that in code, make it reproducible, and then make it accessible for other people to use as well. And hopefully we can get more people doing analytics and make hockey analytics for everyone. So hopefully, I'm not saying this has to replace your Excel workflow. If you are really comfortable in Excel, you can still do that. But hopefully, being able to use this tool to make your data easier to deal with, be able to do it more than once, and not have to go back and look at that spreadsheet and try and figure out what you did to get it to look the way it did. And why Postgres? It's free, so I figure you probably don't want to have to pay for it. It's open source, so there's lots of documentation online. You can Google it. There's already a really great intro to Postgres for hockey analytics online, so I figured it's probably the one that people are the most comfortable with. So there's a link to that at the end of the presentation, but there's another really great intro to SQL there, so you can use that to supplement this as well. All right, so what SQL is good for? Basically, SQL is a place to put all of your data and a way to keep it organized. Because I know when you start doing analysis, you end up like saving a spreadsheet and you end up with like 50,000 spreadsheets with like _1, _2, _new. So at least this way you can have a place to put it all in. Keeps it stored, you can find it, and then you can actually run code on multiple things if they're in the same format, which hopefully will make your analysis better. It's not really a replacement for R. A lot of R and Python, you're going to be doing more statistical analysis and building models and things like that. SQL's not really built for that. It's more getting those data sets set up to be able to feed them in and do that analysis. So once you get your data in the shape that you want, you can do that over and over again, and that's really great. It'll hopefully make your life a lot easier. So I'm going to say I really like SQL for data cleaning. Part of that is because I have just experience using it, and it was one of the first languages I learned. You might not like it, and that's okay. You're still allowed to do analysis. That's okay. What I do like about it is that it is reproducible. You can easily create new variables and add things in, and you can go back and look and see what you did to make that, and hopefully that'll be useful for you. The big caveat is data cleaning sucks, and if you have bad data, you're going to get bad results. And 90% of the pain of doing data analysis, as I'm sure most of you in this room know, is that a lot of times the data is gross and missing, and there's something wrong with the format, and something's horrible. The data that we're using today was generously provided, but it took a couple of hours of data cleaning just to get all of the strings to import properly, because it had European hockey players' names in it, and they had umlaut, and no one wanted to read that, and so that was really awful. So anyway, this data has been cleaned, so it will actually import and not give you a giant error every time you try and use it. So feel free to run with this and do more analysis with it. That'll be great. All right, so we're gonna set up Postgres. So everyone click on the thing that you downloaded. I'm not gonna do that live because I'm a little worried that I will screw up, so I have screenshots, so hopefully this will help. For both Windows and Mac, this should look the same. There should be an installer, so you're just gonna click next. And if you have problems, like, let me know and we'll try and get you going. So you're gonna select where you're gonna save it. It should be the first thing that comes up. If it doesn't, then I don't know. And then you're gonna just install all of these things. We're not actually gonna use all of them right now, but we're gonna actually use that pgadmin is gonna be the GUI that we use to code in. There should be a dialog that pops up that asks you to create a password. Do this, remember that password because you're gonna need it later. Don't make it super so you can't remember it, but maybe don't tell everyone about it. This is going to set up a Postgres server on your laptop. Caveat as well, I am a data scientist, not a computer programmer, like not a computer scientist, so when it comes to all of the actual like technical ins and outs of what a Postgres server is, I don't know. So we're just going to focus on the code. So we'll see how that goes. It should be all right. And it's going to ask you to set up a port number. The default is 5432. It should be on both Windows and Mac. And this is kind of the default one for these kind of things, so I think you should be all right, unless you already have a server running, in which case you're probably going to have problems. You get this little dialog asking if you want to accept incoming network connections. Not 100% sure what this means. I tried to Google it, and I just got a bunch of people telling me how to get this to go away. I accepted it. It didn't cause any problems for me, but you can probably deny it. It won't be a big thing because you're not actually, it's a firewall setting, and we're not actually talking to any other things. But if you're going to want to hook this up to R or Python later, you're going to want to allow it because then it'll let you talk, your database talk to other things. And I think that should do it. There might be one more dialogue in the middle, but we'll wait until everyone gets through. But cool, we've got Postgres on our machine. Once you have that done, we're going to open pgadmin, which is this little elephant guy. We're going to get to an interface that looks like this. We're going to wait a minute until it looks like everyone's actually on the same page. So we have a database, so that's really exciting. It's empty, but we have a database. Is everyone cool for me to keep going? Or do you want to wait a minute to get everything installed? Okay, cool. I'll give it like 2 minutes. I'll talk really quickly about like who I am, I guess. Well, sure, everyone will love to hear that. Like Josh said, I'm also from Nova Scotia, so I ended up coming out here to go to SFU to do my master's in stats. I got into hockey, kind of, you know, it's always around. I'm actually from Cape Breton, not from Halifax, so I'm a Screaming Eagles fan, not a Mooseheads fan. So I was really lucky. Marc-Andre Fleury was our goalie while I was in high school, so that was a pretty good thing to get to go watch all the time. He used to come to my high school dances and stand in the corner. It was just uncheck Stack Builder or just ignore Stack Builder. Is there an option to do that? I think you can just quit Stack Builder. You don't need Stack Builder, and then just open pgadmin. That's okay. I think I should have told you not to launch Stack Builder. Yeah, don't launch it. You don't need it. We're not adding anything special in. We're just gonna play with regular Postgres. Cool. Yep.
Does pgadmin come with Postgres?
In the download link that I had, in the standard download, yeah, it comes, it's bundled with it. If you don't see it, you can actually download it as well, like separately, and it should still connect. That's the thing with setting up Postgres. Like I tried it a couple different ways, and I ended up screwing it up like 4 or 5 different times. So you end up having to like uninstall everything and then reinstall. Just yeah. So I think just going with the standard download. If you're not seeing it, you can't download it separately, and it should talk to it.
Do we need the admin for the tutorial? Can we follow on the
You could, if you're comfortable with the command line. It's not set up for that. It's just set up to write a query like in the GUI, but you can still probably follow along, hopefully. Yeah, I can talk to you after and see if we can get it fixed up. All right, everyone pretty much set up? We'll give it a minute. Yeah, so actually, I never really followed hockey. I watched, Screaming Eagles. Then I moved to Australia for a year and realized I really missed it. So that was the year of Vancouver 2010 Olympics, so that was a good time. So watching hockey at 9 a.m. with a bunch of other Canadians, like in a really hot climate, was really cool. And when I came back, I was like, all right, I need to pick a team. I was moving to Vancouver, and it was 2011. They were on their lovely run, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be a Vancouver fan. So that's been great. And that's how I got into hockey. And then I started reading actually Pasitopoulos and things like that, and that's how I started following all of you lovely people on Twitter and lurking around for the last 5 or 6 years. So yeah, I can credit them to actually getting me into hockey, which is pretty cool. All right, everyone. I'm seeing people look like they kind of have it. Thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe, no? Okay. All right, so we have a database. We're just gonna click on it. We're gonna ignore a lot of the stuff like the frills with pgadmin. We're just gonna look at the most basic thing. I stole this from the other hockey tutorial. So we've got a database. We're gonna click that little plus sign on it. It's called Postgres. This is our database. There's all this stuff, and we don't really care that much about it. What we care about is we're gonna look at this schema, which I'm going to explain later. And we're gonna click on public, and that's where we're gonna put all of our data. There's this little place called tables, and we're gonna write data, and we're gonna put some data in that. So I'm gonna go back to my slides. All right, that should be good. Oh, I made a GIF because I wanted to be approachable. And I'm surprised that there were more references to this today, but I'm sure by the end of tomorrow we'll have seen more. Let's do that hockey. All right, these are the data sets, all of that you should have. Thanks to Arbel on Twitter for providing them. We're gonna look at some women's hockey data, guys. It's gonna be awesome, yay! So this is actually a data set that has 17 years, I think, of women's hockey data from multiple leagues. I had to do some cleaning, like I said. I actually pulled out a couple of the European leagues because they had way too many names that weren't importing properly for me. So I will hopefully clean that and add that to it so that at some point we can look at all of it. But for now, we're just gonna look at the NWHL, I think, the CWHL, CIS, so University Hockey. There is some World Championships in there, and then there's a couple other leagues that I'm not sure. But so we've got some data. We're gonna look at some ladies hockey.
Excuse me. I just noticed your reference to Rob Bowman on Twitter.
Yeah. Yes. So he actually provided, like, he sent a link to the data. It's up on his website.
No, his Twitter handle is not correct.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I just copied that wrong. I'll fix that and update the slides.
It just means NHL.
I will do that. Great. Thank you. All right, great. So just some basics of Postgres before we go. So we've got this database. It's the big thing that's holding everything in. The schemas are like little sub-databases, basically like folders. And then the tables are basically like your Excel tables, so there are data files. So basically what we're doing is we're gonna load some data into different tables. We're gonna use just one schema for today, but schemas are really useful, especially if you're using up multiple projects. You can organize your data, so this is just a way to keep yourself organized. So let's look at this.
Is there a particular reason you wouldn't have a database that might just have servers?
Oh, did you click the plus sign next to the server?
Don't see the plus sign next to the server.
I will come back and see.
Okay.
Sorry guys, yeah, you should have a database there as a default, so I'm not sure. So the one thing with Postgres that's different than a couple of the other SQL things, a lot of SQL is like really case insensitive and you can do a lot of stuff with it. Postgres isn't like that. It's really big on, it makes you quote all of your variable names when you do stuff, at least in this one. And it makes you, like, double quotes versus single quotes are different, so like be careful. That's gonna cause you problems. There's a couple of little weird behavioral things. So when you use SQL, it's normally really easy. You can just not worry about if it's an uppercase or lowercase, and that's great. I use SQL Server a lot at work, and so that's really nice. But here you have to be a little bit more careful. So just something to be aware of when you're looking for errors, because errors happen when you code, is to check your double versus single quotes, things like that. So to create a table in Postgres, you can't just flat import data, unfortunately. First, you need to declare your variable names and the data types of your variables and create a table. So you need to run a script that says, this is what the table looks like. Here are the columns, and this column is going to be a number, and this column is going to be string. So we're going to do that. And then there's two main ways to get data in, at least for our purposes. One is to write manually the values into the columns. The other is to upload a CSV or an Excel file. CSV is a little bit easier to upload. And just to caveat that, again, naming things is really hard, so try and be careful when you're naming your tables and your columns and things like that, that you have spelled it right and things like that, so when you're trying to query it, you can actually find the column that you're looking for. All right, so we're gonna declare just a quick thing of data types, because we're gonna have to declare what data types things are when we do it. This varying character can have any combination of letters and numbers in it. That's pretty useful for columns that you don't know what's going to go into it. Integer are numbers without decimal points, which makes sense. And then real or float have decimal points. We're not actually going to do Boolean or timestamps, but those are useful if you want to do that for any of your stuff. And then you can give it a length, so you can tell it how long your column, like how many characters long your column is. If you go over it, it'll just cut it off. So that can be hard when you're importing data in and you don't notice, and then all of a sudden half of your column is gone because it was over the length. So just something to be aware of. Yeah, here we go. All these little weird things about Postgres. Cool. So we are actually going to code now. So we are going to right-click on the public tab under schemas, and we're going to click on that query tool. And that is going to pop up what we are going to code in. And then we are going to create a table. And I'm going to do this with you, so hopefully this doesn't fail on me. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing. So there is this text file that has all the code actually in it, so you don't have to type it. And we are going to create this table. So what we're doing is we're naming our table Olympic results. It's going in the schema public, and it has columns called year, country, wins, losses, and medal. And then those little words next to them are saying what data type it is. So year is an integer, country is a varying character, wins is an integer, losses is an integer, and medal is a varying character. And then we're going to click this little lightning bolt, or you can do F5, and that's going to run. And we have a table. So if we click on our little tables thing, we should have a table that's called Olympic results. Now we need to put data into this. And we're going to do one just really quickly, manually writing data in. In practice, you're probably not going to want to have to do this very often because it's really tedious to have to manually enter every value. So we're going to use the insert into command. We're going to put it into that table, which is in public.Olympic results. We're telling it what columns we're putting the data into, and then we're giving it like groups of rows basically that are going to go into it under values. And again, this is women's Olympic hockey for the last 2 years for the top 3 teams. This is just 2 years. They have 1 gold and 1. I know, I wish. Though I am, to be fair, I am very happy that the U.S. women's team got a gold medal after going on strike for equal pay. Like, good for them. So if we can actually take a quick look. We're going to write a quick statement, and we're going to see what's there. Public. And we have data in our table, so that's really exciting. We're not going to do much more with this one, just because it's not very exciting. There's not much going on in here. Let's figure out how to get data from a CSV in, and then we can do a bunch of fun queries. So this one's a little bit longer, and this one's going to actually pull in all that data from that file that we have. So once again, we're going to create our table. So we're declaring all the variable names and the types that they are in the same way that we did before. And if we refresh our tables, we're going to see we have another table here called women's hockey. Okay, we've done that. All right, we just did this one. And now we're going to import from a file. So we're going to right click on the table that we want to put the data into, and we're going to hit this import export. All right, so we're going to click this so that it goes import. And then we are going to find the file that we want, which is this one. We're going to select it. And then we need to click that there's a header because our data file has column names. And then we need to select our delimiter from the list because we are using a CSV file. It's a comma separated file. We're going to pick the comma. And we should have data in our thing now. All right. So now we're going to do the most basic query of all in SQL, which if you've done SQL before, you've probably done this a million times. We're just going to select everything from this table that we have. And we're going to run that. And we'll see that we have way more data than we did before. We actually have rows for all of these things. So you can see the different leagues, the different players for many, many years. There's lots of data in there. Is everyone doing okay so far? You've written a SQL query. You're doing great. So the select star selects everything. If you just want individual columns and not everything to show up. You can specify which columns you want, so we can do the same thing. And then we also have this great select distinct, which is when you might have duplicates in your records. You can actually select all unique values from the column, and that's really good. Sometimes you want to be counting, you want to be doing things like that. It's good for doing data sanity checks. So we can do that. And you can do it for multiple columns at once, and it'll show all unique combinations of the two. So let's do that. So here are all the leagues we have data for right now, which is pretty exciting. So the next basic thing that you're going to want to do is you're basically going to filter your data. So if you're used to working in Excel, you normally use that little, like, you'd click and you'd filter on your variables. You'd click the values that you want to see. Here we can actually, like, programmatically specify what we want. So what we can do is we can filter this, and we can pull up that first query will pull up all of those columns from this data set where the games played is greater than 5. You can also do things like where it is equal to a certain value, so you can do it on either a string value or a numerical value. And most of the other queries we're going to do now are going to have some kind of where statement in them. And then when you want to start getting a bit more fancy, you can start adding more logical operators in. So you have your, you can chain them. You can say, I want it where league is NWHL and the season is 2015, so you can start filtering more. And you can add more and more and more of those. You just need to make sure that every time you have an operator, you have both the column that it's coming from and the value that you want it to be. That can cause problems when you start writing big, long ones, and it turns out that it won't give you what you want. And then the next one, you can do an OR statement, so pretty common. You can give it a list of values and say, I only want to pull the things where the position is a forward, a right wing, a left wing, or a center. Or you could do things like, I want all of the data from this data set where the position is not a goalie, so I'm going to see all the skaters. So maybe a different way of doing that. So we'll run a couple of these, or you can run those on your own. Maybe it might be faster, because I'm thinking we're not doing super great for time. We can run a couple of these to see what they look like. So basically what we're doing is just slicing and dicing our data set and being able to reproduce what we want to do.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Here.
Where? Sorry. Yep. Hi.
I'm used to Python, so when you're selecting this, when you're running this little select script,
Yep.
is it creating a new variable or a new table, or just selecting?
Right now, it's not creating anything new. It's just putting it into your screen, right? So it's selected the data to display. If you want to create a new data set, we're actually going to get to that later. You have to specify where you want to write it to. So it's not actually, it's just filtering what you have and displaying the things that match the criteria. It's not actually creating a new object yet, no. All right, let's see what we can do. You're basically programmers now. Like, you know more SQL than like 90% of people in the world, so you're doing great. So yeah, actually that ties in really well to my next slide, which is creating tables. So as like I said before, it's actually not creating a new table. So once you have those results, you can't really do anything with them. You can see them for yourself, but if you want them to be saved so that you can use them again or query them, you need to give that little into statement and then put it into a new table. And the big thing is, I've come across this a lot, you run it and then you forget and you run it again and you try and put into the same place that you've already stored data, and it won't let you overwrite. So you'll have to delete the table that you're trying to write into or give it a new name and call it something else. So what we're going to do is we'll do that. We're going to create a new table that is just a subset of this table that has just a few of the metrics, and we're going to call it WHockey. And I've actually created a new variable here called full name, because right now the names are stored separately in a first name column and a last name column. And I want to put those two together, and I want to call that full name so that I can query just on the player name. So. And then I'm going to run it, and hopefully it will not crash on me. Oh, that's because of this. Like I said, this needs to be a single quote because it is being a jerk about things. All right, let's try that. Cool. So it won't let me put a value in that is, it's looking for a column called underscore and not sticking the string underscore in. So anyway, now we have a new table. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit easier for us to read. And just be careful when you're deleting tables that you're deleting the one that you want and not one that you can't get back, because that could be a problem. So the next thing is basically like the equivalent to an Excel sort. So this is the order by command, and you can do it ascending or descending, and so then you can take a look at things in order, which is helpful. So I'm going to do this. Now I can query that table. And we can see the top points that we have in a single season is 114, which is pretty impressive. Let's see if I can expand this so you can see who it is. And I've just limited this by 100, so it's only going to show me the top 100 rows, just so that it's not printing out forever and ever and ever. Which is followed nicely by our next one. So this limit tells it to limit the amount of output that you get. So you can change that to 10,000 or 5 or 24 or 42, depending on what you decide you want. And so that will let you. So this was just me querying for obviously the best players in this data set will be the ones with the most plus minus, because we all know that that is the stat that tells you the most about what makes a good player. And let's see how that goes. Let's see if we can do that. So the main thing is these are just like building blocks that you can build up to write queries that will get you the data that you want. And you can use it to move the data around to get into the format that you want to be able to do the analysis that you want. So yeah, some poor people have a minus 45 plus minus, so not great. It's really good to use this limit to be able to just see a small sample of your data, especially if you're dealing with huge data sets. For hockey analysis, you probably won't have crazy ones, but sometimes you're trying to run something and the query takes 20 minutes to run. If you just want to see the top 10, maybe it's a lot faster and you don't have to wait around for it to do. It's limiting the output, so it actually does the calculation and then it only displays. If you want to limit the input, you have to change the data set that you're feeding in or that you're querying on. You can, in most SQL, you could do a select top 10. Postgres doesn't like select top, so. But yeah, there is a way to do it where you just like, it only pulls out the top 10 and that's a little bit slower. That's good. Yeah. How's everybody doing? Okay? Not okay? Really boring? I don't know. Okay. All right. Tool that I use a lot, I find a lot of my job is actually doing getting descriptive stats on data so that we can say whether or not it's good or not. So I use counts a lot, and I use count distinct a lot as well. So we're just going to do a couple of things. The thing to know with count is it actually counts every record that shows up. So you're going to get duplicates in there. If you want a distinct, you have to count the distinct values of the thing. And so if you count on a variable name, it will actually give you a count of how many are not null. So if there are null values, it's not going to count them. So sometimes that's a way to get a feel for how complete your data is. You can compare the count of the total number of rows that you have to the count of non-null. So that tells you how much is missing, which is sometimes super helpful. Let's see. So we're going to count the total number of rows we have here, and then we're going to see how many have a position filled in. And we're going to see that they're not exactly the same. There are about 200 people that don't have a position. Okay. So like I said, if you want to count distinct, you can get all the unique values, and that's super great. If you want, yeah, so that's super helpful sometimes. Quickly, we're going to go to the next best thing, which is group by. So if you want to do things like, so if I want to know the totals for everything for each league, you're going to be able to do that. And instead of having to do some kind of pivot table or something in Excel, you can actually just do a group by, and this is pretty fast and pretty good. So we're going to just see how many teams are in each league. Let's see. Did I spell league wrong? Possibly. It's because it's the wrong kind of quotes. Because it was written in Word. Apparently there's a difference between double quotes that bend and double quotes that don't bend. Just to make things fun. There we go. Let's try this now. There we go. Now it'll do it. So we can see how many distinct teams, or how many teams we have here, which is pretty fun. All right, let's see how many seasons we have. And we can do this for multiple columns at a time, which is very helpful. It's going to be the same thing. It doesn't like my quotes. Live debugging, super fun.
Why does it look like you're replacing things that are already there?
Because if you can see up close, it's actually, the quotes are curved quotes because it was copied. I copied and pasted into Word and then out of Word, and it formatted it, and it's not recognizing that they're the same quotes. So it's replacing it with straight up and down quotes, which apparently is different. So let's try it now. So you do need quotes, but this one doesn't. So yeah, debugging is super fun. And the table doesn't exist, but this one does. So we can see how many players are on each team, which is pretty fun for each season. So yeah, coding is really fun. You get to spend most of your time just trying to recreate what you did before and figure out why the computer won't read what you want it to read. So again, once you can group by, you can then do a bunch of calculations on those groups, which is fun. You can aggregate across those groups. The one thing, if you're going to do things like that, you're going to need to add the group by statement, or it won't know what you're trying to group it by. Or if you want to just do those aggregates not across groups, you can just do the straight ones and it'll calculate it for everything that it finds. So we can actually find what the highest value of plus minus was and what the lowest value of plus minus was in our data set. Oh, it's doing the same thing, just this one. Why it only reformatted some of them, I will never know. So the person with the lowest plus minus had -45, and the person with the highest had 59. So there's a bit of a range there. And again, that tells you who the best and the worst hockey players are. Don't know why it's still doing this to me.
You can use search in place.
I can, but it's not actually, I'm replacing it with the same value. It's just a formatting thing, yeah. And you'll see that some of the leagues don't actually record the stats, so they're not gonna have anything in them. And then you can do basically the same thing with sum, so we can see that we can total things across. And there's other arithmetic grouped functions as well. Google is your friend when it comes to those. A lot of times you can do a lot with the built-in functions. They have a lot of things already set up so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All right, so now say we want to create some new variables. We did it before when we created the new thing, but there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. Basically, in your select statement, you just perform some kind of function, and then you give it a name, and then you have a new column, and it is going to be what you said it was going to be. The one thing to be careful of is here you have to use this cast thing, because goals is an integer, and so if you're trying to divide an integer by another integer, it's going to round to an integer, and you probably want those decimals because they do have some useful information there. So what I'm doing is I'm casting, so I'm like changing the type of goals to be a float data type, and then we're going to divide it by the number of games played, and we're going to get an average goals per game. And then we're going to group that by player and team, and then we'll get that average over. So basically, instead of having to write a function in an Excel cell and then copy and paste it down, you can just write it out, and then you can go back and refer to it, and you'll be able to figure out how you got it. Cool. So we can see some of our best players, maybe a better metric than plus minus. I think the first one's Megan Acosta, which kind of makes sense. All right. Since I'm running out of time, all of the code is in here, and all my slides are on GitHub, so you can take a look at them and pull them up later. We can create new variables with string functions, which are super fun. So there's a lot of built-in string functions in SQL. Postgres deals with most of them pretty well. So you can do things like add an underscore and concatenate. Those double lines are concatenating, so it's taking two columns and putting them together, and then putting the values of those columns into one variable. You can also do substring, which is another pretty common function. So you can actually pull out values based on the position of the string. I won't go into all of them. I will say that Stack Overflow is going to be your friend for a lot of these things. You can Google it, and it will show you how to do it. But at least you have some examples now of how these things work. One of my favorite functions is the like function, and it's basically like a regex, so it'll actually let you search up into the string and pull out things that match a pattern that you give it. So me being a little narcissistic, I decided to look for all the players that have like a Megan name to see if we can find them. And so the first one there, I'm looking at things that have a pattern that is MEG and then anything else after it. That's what that little % means. So that's pretty fun. I can then pull up all the names that have that at the beginning. If I can do that on the last name as well. If you wanted to say something ended in, say, E, you do that % first, and then it means anything can come before it as long as that last letter is E. And then that last one there is saying anyone who has a name that it could have anything before it so long as it has the pattern MAC, then it's going to match and it's going to pull up all of those values. So we'll just show a couple of those just to see what it looks like. I'll pull up. I was born in the 80s and a lot of people were named Megan at that time. So I'm guessing that there will be a lot of Megans here. And we can see there's quite a few. This is covered, but there's going to be quite a few Megans. So if you want to play around with this, it's actually a pretty fun thing to do. I am now looking at my query history, which I don't want. All right. Anyway, so the like function is great. It's very useful for when you're looking to clean your data up, to find issues. If you know that there's some kind of issue, then you can do it. So you can see what that means. All right. The next one that I find really useful is case statements. So if you want to like flag something if it hits a certain condition, which I find in modeling is we use it a lot because we want to flag things that are, for categorical variables. If you want to flag if they're over a certain thing or below a certain range, something like that. We end up using this a fair bit. So what I've got here is a statement that will actually flag anyone who has more than 10 goals in a season. And basically, I'm going to put a 1 if that is true, and a 0 if it's false, and then that little end closes my case statement. So you can do that with whatever. Or you can do the value that you give. It doesn't have to be a 1 or a 0 or a number. It can actually be a string, so you can classify things into categories if you want. So it's a good way to quickly go through and create a new variable by checking if it hits. So instead of having to write a for loop in R to create a new variable, you can do it all in just one statement, and that's in your new table now. So again, I find it kind of easier for me just because I'm comfortable with this, to use SQL to get your data all set up, and then you have a really nice data set you can pump into R and do modeling on, and not have to spend a long time cleaning it up. So the next thing we're going to do really quickly is we're going to create 2 data sets and we're going to put them back together just to show you what a union does. And then I'm going to hopefully finish off fairly soon. So what we're going to do is there's these 2 select statements that basically filter and they pull out the season 2014 and the season 2015. Let me do them one at a time so I don't break anything. That one quote wanted to be curly. I don't know why only some of the quotes are changing and not the others. Now it is working. So now we have a new table called VanHAC 2014. I'm just going to do this. And now we have one called 2015. So if we refresh our tables, we'll see that we have these more tables here, which is great. So the union statement's great if you have tables that are already in the same format. So say you've been scraping and you've got multiple tables that already have all the same columns and they're all the same, you've got all the same variables in them. You can, and you want to just put them all together into one. The union will just take one and then put the other one right underneath it and then create them into one table. If you want to write that to a new table, you just need to do an into statement at the very beginning and tell it where to store it. But unions are useful. Cool, so now we have both 2014 and 2015, which is great. Sorry, this is super fast, but you've basically now finished 90% of an intro to SQL course, so you could pretty much apply for jobs that ask for SQL now. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about super fast is joins. So one of the best parts of SQL is it's pretty flexible when you want to mash data together. So now I'm going to pull in data from both of those things, from both 2015 and 2016 or 2014, and I'm going to put them into a row, and I can actually like transpose the data, and it's great. You need to tell it which table is which, so I labeled 1A and 1B, and then you have to give it a condition on I want the rows to come up, I want the full names to be the same, so I want the value for player A to go into the row of player A, which makes sense. There's lots of documentation on SQL joins. You could probably talk for hours on it. I'm going to do a very quick, just one example. And so yeah, we've got now a column that is the 2014 goals and a column that is the 2015 goals. So we can see that that can be useful if you want to get your data into a format that you want to run models on or do cool analysis. You can do some of this munging here. And you can see how it was done so that when you want to do it again, you can just put your data in, give it a new data set, and you can get it out the output that you want. Cool. All right, since we're running out of time. Now, if you want to actually do that and do some analysis on it using an Excel sheet, you can export this to CSV pretty easily. There's a little button here called Export to CSV. And if you click it, you just give it a name, you tell it where to save it, and you now have a CSV that you can do all of the analysis that you're comfortable with doing or used to doing on. You've got it. But you've also got the backup of it in your database, and you know how you got it. So that's helpful. All right, if you don't want Postgres on your machine anymore, there are commands here that you can get rid of it because it takes up a lot of space. Might be useful after this tutorial if you're not going to use it. And resources. So lots of SQL resources that are pretty helpful. The official docs have a lot of things in it. There's the W3 Schools is one that I end up because it comes up on Google all the time when you're searching a problem. And Stack Overflow as always for coding. And if you get really stuck, at me at Twitter and I can see what I can do for you. And then if you want to look at the other tutorial that has another walkthrough of how to use SQL and Postgres for hockey analytics, there's a great one that's already there. So please check that out. It's pretty great. Any questions? This is my cat. She's